Hi everybody, this is Denny with my YouTube channel Why Is This True? And joining me this evening is Ileana the Star Traveler. Is that correct? Did I say that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's her online name that we'll use. I know her as Elena, and some of you will remember that we first did our interview in person up in White Rock, Canada. I think it was back in July of 2016, I think. And then we followed up with some Skype interviews. And the reason for the interview today is Elena and Karl Mollison did a fascinating two-part interview that's on Ileana's channel. And I invite everybody to watch that because that's what this interview is about. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to all the information that was revealed in that channeling session. And this is Karl Mollison channeling Ileana's higher self. And so she had prepared some questions. They did a great introduction where Karl had an opportunity to talk about his methodology and what he was doing. And they had a good informal discussion prior to the channeling session. And then the introduction was repeated again in part two for people who hadn't seen that. And then the latter half of the channeling session was in part two. So what I did is I watched the first part one up to about 1 hour and 40 minutes. And I was telling Elena, I looked down and I had 21 questions. So I knew that would make for a pretty long interview. And even if the short answers are short, it's going to be a pretty long interview. So we agreed to do it in parts. So thank you so much for joining me. This is I feel like we're kind of like moving into a whole new arena involving this whole SSP experiencer thing and what we're learning about the alien agenda and how that extends into every facet of human life. What do you think about that? I mean,
Yeah, it certainly is in our daily facet of our life, especially mine, because I had been abducted by reptilians, by two groups of reptilians when I was 2. Also another gray harvester guy. So black trouser reptilians, Sharab Invictus yellow reptilians, and this tall guy who was gray humanoid. He was humanoid looking. So they were part of my life since I was a kid, small child. And then the SSP stuff happened as a teenager. So first it was the what I found out that I was involved. It's Monarch program. I wouldn't say it's like my labs, very similar, but very harsh. It's even harsher than my labs. And I was taken into underground bases in the Sierra Madre Mountains, not Sierra Nevada, Sierra Madre. So that's lower south of California and Florida. Actually, not too far from New Mexico and Texas, apparently. So
okay, yeah,
it's kind of like downward.
Goes into the Mexican, yeah, goes into Mexico, yeah. Sierra Madres?
Not even. Yeah, not even
Okay.
New Mexico, like
Well,
of close to it.
I could post a map. You could check and we could give a location and I'll interject it here into the interview.
Yeah.
So, would you say that early programming, another thing that we were discussing before this started, and a fellow SSP experiencer, Tony Rodriguez, is now reading this book that I mentioned with Elena that some people are reading right now. It's been around for a while. It's called How the Illuminati Create an Undetectable Total Mind Control Slave. Have you had a chance to read that, Elena? Have you read that?
No.
No?
No,
Oh,
I haven't.
okay.
Because I have to not immerse myself in so much the Illuminati stuff because I'm still working through what happened to me.
Right.
So I don't want to front end or back end load myself with more of this stuff because I'm still healing from what
Okay.
happened.
Okay, I understand.
So
Well, I would
yeah.
recommend, based on what I've learned so far, and if people want to find out what that consists of, that's the book I would recommend right now, based on what I've learned. Not that everything's going to apply, or that everything is necessarily going to apply in Elena's case, but it gives you a general idea of what what that experience is, its purpose, and what now. Now, one of the things I came away with from this channeling session with you and Karl, was that not only was a lot of your specific memories and recollections validated, but what was the revelatory aspect of all this, the revelation here, was the purpose of it. The purpose seemed to be very different than what perhaps you were led to believe, and maybe for a lot of people looking in on your testimony, they would say, they would come away with different conclusions, whereas the testimony coming through Karl, your higher self, was that this is basically a subterfuge. This was a lot of like misdirection, or trying to involve you in ways that would keep you engaged and separated from your spiritual mission. Would you agree with that? Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because if I had been allowed to do my spiritual mission earlier on in my life, in my early 20s, I could have changed much more things, but I was kept busy with the programs, with the ET abductions, with the ET contact experiences. There was so much of that going on. Let's see. Abductions first by the Reptilians, and then the contact experiences with other ETs, so it wasn't just Reptilians. Then on top of that, layer it with the SSP stuff. I was implanted, I was tracked. They watched basically all of my life. I've been watched first by the ETs, then by the programs, and by the ETs again. So I was kept distracted constantly, and I kept moving from country to country. I kept immigrating. I was born in Ukraine. Then I went and lived in Israel for 2.5 years. Then I came to Canada. So the countries that I come from, Ukraine and Israel, those are cabal-run states too. So
right.
Those countries are not the most cleanest and nicest, governments and people.
Right.
So it's I come from the former Soviet Union, basically.
Yeah. Right.
So that plays in mind where I was born as well, where I was born specifically. So that had to have played a spiritual role, as well as the role of being abducted and put into the programs.
Perhaps even the genetics.
Yes,
Yeah.
the genetics, because I have a lot of ET genetics in me. I remember my previous lifetimes as well. My ET stuff, it's encoded. It's in my cellular memory, and I remembered a lot of it. So that has to do a lot with that too. Why
Right.
they abducted me, and why I was put as an asset into the programs. And I don't call myself a whistleblower or an insider, because I'm neither. Now I say this, I was taken as an asset, not willingly taken. Before, I thought it was all willing and consensual. Now I have to say no. I'm changing my story after what I've heard with Karl through the channeling and some of the other stuff, because I've also done another sort of like a regression session with Christopher Jacobs, who also says was in this SSP program, and he's a good psychic. So he also found that there's mind manipulation involved as well, and subterfuge. Okay. So there's a commonality running through this story.
Right.
So
and that's another thing I should point out too, is that a lot of the messages that came through the channeling sessions was consistent with a lot of the other light being testimony that we got from some of these other channeling sessions that I've done with Karl. We've done a series of them, different from what you guys did, because he was actually channeling your higher self, and there you are sitting there. And the only thing that was even close to that was when he did the Secret Service agent, which was me, but it was from a perspective of not this incarnation, but the incarnation where he went by the name Philip, was a Secret Service agent in the Eisenhower administration, and was killed because of his lack of cooperation with the plan to assassinate Dwight D. Eisenhower. So this channeling session was very different in your case, as opposed to what we've been doing in the majority. But the light being message about this reptilian agenda, the extent of the mind control, how sophisticated and how patient they are, and how willing they are to work with certain individuals, and apply this mind control technology to human consciousness. And it is for the purpose of suppressing us and keeping us away from our spiritual mission. And I don't think that, my personal opinion is that, no one should look at this as like, Ileana's special or something like that, because this is being done to everyone in certain ways. It just so happens that the way it was done with you was as it pertains to these off-planet experiences and their specific use for you, given your, your, like we said, your genetics, your skills, your past, your soul's plan for this incarnation of what you're going to do. Like I kind of see you differently than you see yourself, because you say you're not a whistleblower, but here we are in public right now exposing the alien agenda. That's what we're doing. We're exposing the alien agenda. So that's just my way of looking at it. So, I mean, some people would say, "Oh, that's a whistleblower." It's okay that we may want to use different terms for that, but to me, that's the value in this. The value in this is that this is no longer a secret, and we're getting outside verification. Not everyone's going to believe this, but that's fine. But it so happens that a lot of people are looking at what Karl's doing, and they're finding a high level of credibility there. And I'm so happy this has been extended to you, because there's been a lot of doubt dumped on your narrative that I understand, but I don't think it's been deserved. So I'm very excited for you, for me, for Karl, for everybody listening here, because this is like a new era of discovery, where we're peeling away the layers and we're learning the truth. I think we're learning the truth. No.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And the funny part is about these programs, they actually try to make you feel special and like you're all this and that. And that's how they keep you reined in these programs, by rewarding you, by praising you, and then using you for subterfuge and using you as a weapon, as an assassin, as other things, whatever you're good for.
Right.
So it's common in there.
Yeah. I don't think that I don't think it would be wise for someone looking in on this and saying, "Oh, well, look what happened to Ileana. Well, I'm immune from this. That didn't happen to me." I think I would be very careful saying that to myself. And even for me, I mean, I found myself today listening to an interview with Tony Rodriguez and Neil 333, and I was thinking, they were talking about the blank slating and all this, and I was going, I wonder if any of this applies to me, because Tony was talking about his tumultuous period of time between he was 9 years old and 29 years old, and there were some similarities there, even though I'm quite a bit older. Anyway, we're not answering this in terms of discovering that there's less questions. There's actually more questions now. So with that, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and start asking the questions.
Sure.
Is that good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this one, some of this we've already covered, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Were there any surprises for you in this channeling session with Karl?
Not really.
So you knew that you were being used that you were being fooled? Did you know that?
Well, I suspected.
Okay, so
I suspected.
So there was no surprises. Okay.
No, zero surprises.
All right. Okay, next question. Do you feel that you received genuine contact with your higher self?
I do, because the energy felt right. It was not demanding. It wasn't pushy. It was very calm essence, very matter of fact and on task. That's how my higher self is always, very organized. And I could tell the difference because I had a QHHT session, quantum healing hypnosis, one time just for a comparison. And supposedly I was talking to my higher self, but it was very pushy. It was very demanding. It was very monotone, very bossy. it did not feel like me. I think that was a reptilian influence that came through.
Yeah, I would have to agree. The tone of those two couldn't be any more different. Yeah.
And you listened to the QHHT, so
Yeah, oh, yeah, I did. I listened to the whole thing. You sent me the MP3 file, and I was going.
Yeah.
I just it was it was not a good experience for me listening to that. But anyway, well, I mean, it's useful now because you have a basis of comparison. You know what a hijacked session looks like.
Yeah.
And that's probably what it was. It was hijacked.
And it also depends on the practitioner who's holding the space for the session. If they don't know how to hold the space properly, stuff can come through and beings can come through. Karl knows how to hold his space really well and to have a protective energy field. And even I know better now than what I used to know a year ago, how to hold sacred space and safe space.
Right.
Because my intention was only for my higher self to come in for my highest good and nothing else, and to tell the truth. That's what I put out before doing the session with Karl channeling, and during the session I kept holding the energy there for that and nothing else.
Right. Okay. Okay, number 3. Do you think it's accurate to say that your memories of the secret space program, the ICC, military, and abduction experiences were those of alien efforts to sidetrack you from your spiritual mission?
I would say yes. I think it's both alien and also the military programs themselves, because it's humans working with aliens, extraterrestrials, side by side.
Right.
So it's both.
One of the things that we found out from the sessions that we did, because we were interviewing people like James Forrestal, we did Dwight D. Eisenhower, we did Frank Weissner, who was like the godfather of the CIA, very much responsible for setting up the dark side of NATO, the Gladio missions and stuff, and almost every single one of them says that the level of mind control on these people in the military intelligence services and these black projects is off the charts high. There's a lot of effort spent on manipulating the mindset of these people to essentially serve the alien agenda. So it's almost a misconception to try to segregate the two. Like, the alien agenda and the ICC activities and the SSP activities are very interwoven. It's not easy just to separate them and say, here's the alien agenda and here's the military, the military aspect of it. Would you agree with that? Does that seem accurate?
I think they work side by side, tandem together. I can't separate the two because both were involved.
Yeah.
What I can tell you, the ICC has in their labs on the Mars bases, they have human hybrid reptilian hybrids, human hybrids that are reptilian as well, part human, part reptilian. They look human, they act human, except they have scales here or here on the forehead, and they actually breed. Also hybrids, hybrid assassins, human reptilian assassins, or Cobra Nordic assassins that look humanoid. So they also breed them in these programs.
Okay.
In the ICC.
Okay, number 4.
So they do genetic manipulation.
Okay. Number 4. Do you think it's accurate that the reptilian faction is primarily responsible for the efforts to sidetrack you?
Yes, I think they are, because I've had, when I was abducted as a child, I had 2 different reptilian species abduct me. Also, there's the harvester race that's involved. Again, genetics. So I would have to say it was primarily reptilians, but there was other ET involvement from other species for sure.
Okay. Which interaction or interactions were most convincing to you?
They all were.
They all were convincing?
Yeah.
None stands out as being especially appealing to you in terms of their ability to fool you, so to speak? Make you think that you're doing something that you weren't actually doing?
They were all very special.
Okay.
They make it seem so exciting and fantastical and amazing. It's all special.
Okay.
Unless they're torturing you and it's painful, then it's not so special.
Right.
So they have an amazing knack to manipulate. And if you're in a simulation, you won't know what's real and what's real. It can be so real in a simulation.
Right.
Or it was real training mission, and you wouldn't know the difference if it was a simulation or not, because it all seems so real. It's hard to know the difference anymore.
Right. And it seems like maybe the most important part of all this was what the understanding that they were trying to give you is the purpose for all these activities. Like they would convince you that, well, you need to learn this because this is how you're going to protect humanity or advance humanity or do something positive, when in fact that was not the case at all. You were just serving their needs, and humans were actually pretty far down on their list of concerns as far as well-being or spiritual advancement, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the channeling showed is that I infiltrated Mars, the Mars colonies of the ETs that are native to Mars, and infiltrated their colonies, and I acted as a liaison and an ambassador to make them think I was going to help them, but I wasn't. It was like a species cultural exchange program, when it wasn't. I was put in there to spy on them without me really knowing. I thought I was just, getting to know the culture on Mars. I'm here serving on Mars, might as well. They used me, the ICC used me to put me in the middle of those colonies to make friends, to seem like a good person to them, when without my own knowledge, they were recording everything that was in my implants. They were getting all that information, and I was basically a spy.
Okay. Has your appreciation of the skills of these aliens involved in subterfuge changed since your experience with Karl's channeling of your higher self?
Well, yes. I'm no longer seeking active contact with any alien species or with the ICC or SSP. I'm no longer wishing to have contact experiences. I'm shut down. I'm closed off. I've put protection around myself, psychic protection, and I've done mantras: don't come here, don't abduct me, don't take me. And I've put groups like, you're not allowed to take me, you can't take me, it's against my will, I won't go. Don't play around with my free will, basically. So it was a warning. It was basically a warning. Don't get involved, no matter how much the temptation is, no matter what they're offering you. It's smoke screens. They're not going to follow through on those offers. So just stay on Earth, and don't go around having these contact experiences.
Right. You know what's cool is that I'm asking these questions, and you're leading right logically to the very next one. I mean, this keeps happening as I ask the questions. It's like, okay, well, she just either answered the next question or she's segueing into the next question. So we must have like divine oversight here going on.
I think it's that higher self that's basically looking in and just
reading over my shoulder.
Yeah, probably.
That's cool. Okay, well, because you just said this, question 7 is, what is the main message for others who may have similar experience to yours? And you just answered the question. You're just putting, you're kind of like shutting down. You're saying no. You're being very clear about, what you don't want any more contact experience. So that would seem to be a good message for others.
Well, and also be careful what you wish for. I thought the SSPs, I wanted to know what they're doing again. I wanted to be part of them again. I wanted to see what's going on Mars. And they took me again because I wanted that. They took me again, and I ended up on Mars as a military abductee and an asset again. They reeled me in temptation. Careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, and I did get it in spades.
Right.
Again, they took me again and again and again because I gave permission for it to happen. Basically, if you give permission, free will, it works here on this planet. It works on Mars and the solar system. If you give permission, and if you want to go with them, they'll take you happily.
Right.
You just open the door wide open.
Right. And also, one thing I've learned, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times they read saying nothing as saying yes. If you're
That too.
if you're ambivalent about it, or you don't proclaim anything, then they'll say, well, your silence is your acquiescence.
That too. That
Okay.
too. It's don't say yes loudly, and don't just stand by and do nothing either, because both are equations
Okay.
to for stuff to happen.
Okay. Number eight's a little bit more complex, and I'll repeat it if I need to. Okay, so which of the two purposes for your recruitment was most successful in your opinion? So what I got from listening to the channeling was that the two purposes. The first purpose was to prevent you from pursuing your spiritual mission. So that was one of the purposes. The second was to use you as a credible interface to interact with newer recruits and use you for various missions to further enslave mankind. That was the other mission. So my question is, which of the two purposes for your recruitment was most successful in your opinion?
Oh, I would say number one, because my
Really?
health was ruined. Yes, it was
So
the most
that
successful.
preventing you from pursuing your spiritual mission.
Yes, I can't even leave the country. I can't travel. They ruined my health. The programs ruined my health. The reptilian abductions ruined my health, and I can honestly say that they were successful,
Okay.
very successful.
Okay, but now you are no longer recruited. So if I could be so
No,
bold to point out that you can resume your spiritual mission and you might end up being tremendously successful.
I hope I can resume it. I still can't travel
Yeah,
outside of the country.
but you don't need to
No,
pursue your spiritual mission. I mean,
no,
this is evidence of it right now. How many thousands of people might we be reaching with this interview right now? Yeah.
exactly.
So
I'll do anything I have to get better and to be on my spiritual path and to be on a good path.
yeah.
I'm glad they failed with number two, because I don't want to enslave anybody. I don't want to convince anybody into anything. I've learned from what I went through, and I don't want that for anybody.
All right.
I don't want that for people. I want people to be free, to be able to make their own choices, to set their own life path, and to not be enslaved by these ETs, by any of these programs. So it's a lesson. It's a life lesson to learn.
Okay. Number nine. Do you think you would have or could have been used as an assassin at some point if the alien plot was successful?
I think I could have successfully been used in assassin because I have an inordinate amount of weaponry at home. I have handguns, I have semi-automatic rifles, I have swords, I have battle axes, I have throwing knives, I have electrical stun batons. You name it, I got it. But they weren't successful because I'm not an assassin. I don't have urges to use my weaponry. But if they kept me in the programs, I could have been used as a full-blown weapon without any problems. Because the training is there. When I was younger, the passion was there to use the weaponry. I never did fully use it, but the passion was there. I was a battle-ready, trained warrior. So they could have easily. And maybe I don't remember some of it. Maybe I was used as something. I don't want to remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't have the urge to kill anybody or anything. I'm a pacifist. So I'm glad that that programming did not work. And it failed miserably. In my opinion, in this life right here, it failed. I might have the weapons collection, but I don't want to grab it and go off and do stuff. No thanks.
Yeah. So, can you envision a plausible target for such a thing?
Yeah, I can envision a target inserting me to spy on people, to lurk, to spy, because I'm very good at, like, sometimes I will just go around the corner and I'm so quiet people won't see me when I'm there. I'm standing right behind their back and they won't see me. So I'm thinking schools. I'm thinking schools in very public places. That's where they could have inserted me easily. Because I seem so unassuming, so non-threatening. not somebody you can remember, plain Jane. So you could put me anywhere, nobody would notice me, and I could just get information, or I could easily, off
Yeah.
somebody. Nobody would notice because it's you seem so unassuming, like a young
Right.
woman just walking around. And I
That
have a wig collection, so you can dress me up, you can doll me up in makeup as well, and nobody will recognize me, not even my own mother.
okay.
So that's something else that I used to do. I used to dress up and look like somebody else. So the multiple personalities. I don't have multiple personality disorder, but the ability to take on somebody else's role and be somebody else, that comes easily to me. Act like, that comes easily just for an hour or so. Nobody
Hmm.
would know the difference,
Okay.
whether it was me or somebody else in a wig.
So, what do you think is the most important thing for people to understand about the Monarch Illuminati mind control programming, or at least the mind control programming that you were subjected to? What do you think is the most important thing for people to realize about that?
Um, they whisper sweet nothings into your ear. So many different promises. You're going to change the world. You're going to make it all better. This is for your highest good. No, it's not. Behind each promise, there's a smoke screen of something bad that you're going to be doing. They're prepping you for that. So it's false promises. Monarch program is heavily mind manipulated. They use layers of mind manipulation. Any way they could. They could break you, torture you. They could break you down and then easily manipulate you. And if you're not easily manipulated, then they'll offer rewards and incentives to get you to cooperate. So they're very tricky and slippery.
Elaine,
And they'll,
Elaine,
yeah,
how do you think it's different between how that works between women and men? Do you think it's a different? Do you think they use a different methodology with women as opposed to men, or do you think it's pretty much the same thing?
I think there is a difference. Women have much more patience. And for me, technology is my weakness. You give me gadgets, I will happily play with them. So for women, shiny, sparkly things sometimes can be an incentive. It's patience. With women, you can train women more for longer periods of time. Women have the patience to stick with it and continue doing it and doing it, doing it until they get it right.
Hmm.
I don't think with men it might not be so patient to stick with it that long. It's like,
Yeah, the,
you can't do it, screw it. I'm moving on to something else. Maybe just
yeah.
just thinking that way. I don't want to offend men.
Yeah,
Just
it's okay.
the
Men have been offending women for quite a while, so you can have your turn.
ah,
anyway, never mind.
it's okay.
Let's see. Well, the reason I asked that question because when you said sweet nothings, and it
Yes.
reminded me of some guy trying to seduce a young girl and like promising her things and trying to seduce her with sweet nothings. So that's what I was thinking of that. It's like wow, I wonder if it's different for men. That if they say different things to men to get them convinced that what they're doing is good or whatever. Anyway.
I think on women they might use a softer approach to how they train you. On men it's a harder approach.
Okay.
It's more battles, it's tactical, it's
Toughness and all that.
toughness,
Yeah.
yeah. And in terms of the Illuminati, they hide in plain sight. You might be standing in front of an Illuminati and you won't even know it because they're so good at masquerading themselves and inserting themselves into banks, into schools, into anything basically. They're so
Right.
good at it. It's prevalent. So you
Yes.
wouldn't know if you're standing beside an Illuminati member.
Okay. All right. Question number 12. With the statement from your higher self, and this is a quote: "All
Mhm.
is a excuse me. All is a manipulation with extraterrestrials." Unquote. Do you think there are any exceptions?
Um, I think that sometimes there are exceptions, and I think of that as myself because I was an ET at one time. I've had ET lifetimes. So I trust myself as what my ET memories were beforehand, before this life, of what my ET memories are. I trust that.
Right.
ETs can easily masquerade themselves as anyone or anything, from what I've learned. And they could promise you things that sound wonderful, benevolent, and amazing, and then they could backstab you and do something else. It's totally against what your spiritual mission is. I think sometimes there are exceptions. I don't believe all ETs are bad and nasty and mean and have a nasty agenda for us, but I'd say be careful who you interact with and associate with. ETs, because they can shapeshift, they can change forms, they can appear like your mother, but they're not your mother. So just be careful.
Right. The reason I asked that is because, there's a lot of claims about ET interaction, and, on one extreme, we have Dr. Greer talking about, all the aliens being good, basically, and I think that's a compelling argument for a lot of people. But, here we have the statement from your higher self: all is a manipulation with the extraterrestrials. All is a pretty, that's all means all. All means all. So, I mean, it's so, so it brings up the question: is there any exceptions? And what makes this question so interesting for me is when you look at the issue of free will. And you look at okay, well, sure, there's probably is a lot of good ETs out there. In fact, my personal opinion is that the majority of them are good, but they're not interacting with humans because of the free will aspect. So they're allowing humans to make their own choices and stuff, realizing that their engagement with us is in violation of our free will, because we are, as a species, not only are we veiled, but we're also quite gullible, and we're easy to manipulate. And even the ones of us who think that we're very sophisticated and above all of that, in fact, some of those individuals are they're the ones who are most easily manipulated. So I'm thinking about the free will aspect, like, okay, well, if a good ET is probably going to be very careful about interacting with humans because of these issues, because they know just by their own presence that they could be violating that person's free will. So anyway, maybe you can elaborate on that.
Well, from my experience, the universe is not perfect. Not all ETs are perfect. Some of them are more advanced, civilization-wise, culture-wise. Some of them are more primitive and aggressive and warlike. There's all kinds.
Right.
It takes a country and it takes a gym to dance in tango. So I think of ETs that way as well. They're not all perfect. They're not all good. They're not all bad. They're everything in between. It takes two to tango. So just be careful. A word of caution if you're trying to make ET contact. Be careful who you talk to and what you're offered and why. Ask these questions. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you want from me? What's the purpose of all of this? Where are you taking me? Like, ask a lot of questions and always say, tell me the truth and nothing but the truth. Don't lie to me. This is my free will, my choice. So make sure you have safety protection if you're making contact, because there's tricksters and hucksters out in the universe, even among ETs. We're not all perfect.
Right. Okay, good. All right. Next question. Out of the solar system, when there was a assassin training that occurred outside of the solar system, and there's an explanation of that given from your higher self through Karl's channeling, and when that was being discussed, I noticed it, on your side you were smiling, and I was curious as why do you think you were smiling when you learned about this allegedly new information?
Oh, I've been taken so many times outside the solar system, it's not funny. That's why I smile. It's happened multiple times. for training, for ET abductions, for SSP stuff. I've been taken outside the solar system so many times, it's not funny. That's why I smile. It's not new. I'm not even from this solar system. My original incarnate, like my ET self, my original self, it's not from this universe. So that's why I smile. I'm not from here. I'm not from this solar system. So I smile.
Okay.
My higher self is not from here either. So it's just, for me, I smile because it's normal to hear this. For me, it's nothing new.
Okay.
So, and I'm still smiling now. I'm not from here. I don't consider myself, let's just put it this way, I don't consider myself from this solar system or even from this universe. So that's why I smile.
Okay. Okay, this kind of goes back to a line of questioning that we were getting to earlier. Do you think it's possible that they, in fact, use you for an actual assassination, and that is something you will remember when you are ready?
I think it's very much possible, because I do have that training. I have the weapons training, and I'm not a person who's afraid to use weapons. I can and am trained to use it, and if push came to shove, I would use weapons to protect myself or physically protect myself with martial arts. I have some basic training in that. I don't want to remember. If I was used to kill somebody, I don't want to remember that. I don't want to associate myself with killing. I say it's a strong possibility that they did. But the thing I remember when they put me into the programs, I did not want to fight. I did not want to be a soldier. The only thing I agreed to with my free will was to be battle-ready trained. To be battle-ready trained, but not to engage physically. I was heavily against that in the programs. And I remember they stuck me in data centers, data information centers, gathering and collating data. So I was what they consider a stubborn one. I did not play along with games that they would play with me. I was very stubborn, and I was a pain in the ass in their programs.
Okay.
I would say not a very good soldier.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of being in a leadership position with other untrained humans in a situation that was escalating into violence?
I don't.
You don't?
I honestly don't.
Do you think the messages given to you from your higher self also apply to other SSP experiencers?
I would say yes. Don't be so easily duped by everything that you listen to, that you're told, all your experiences. Be more careful these days. Even I'm more careful after everything that I've learned recently. And just be cautious. Use discernment. Don't be gullible. Don't take everything as the gospel truth and nothing but the truth. Really, if you have memories that surface, look deep into those memories to see what's real, what's fake, or what's partially real. Right. And does it mean anything to you? Are those your memories? Because sometimes they might not be your memories, per se. They can switch you out and give you somebody else's memories, too. So,
yeah,
they love to do that as well.
What do you now see as the significance of the Wernher von Braun contact?
The significance of that is, I recently watched the movie Unacknowledged by Stephen Greer.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the von Braun quotes was, "Be careful, they're now arming space. Space is the next frontier for wars. For a false flag invasion of ET false flags."
Oh, right. Yeah.
But it's not a false flag ET, it's us doing the invading. These secret space programs. Because they used Wernher von Braun. They used his thirst for knowledge, his thirst to go out into space and to help humanity. They used that against him. They took his design concepts for those space stations and they weaponized them. The 4 ICC Mars orbital space station platforms, they're used to spy on people, and they have other platforms that are weaponized as well.
And
So
I remember hearing from your higher self through Karl that it was also a make work program that
yes,
did not have any significance for reptilian use, but it was very useful to misdirect Werner von Braun and perhaps the other engineers from Project Paperclip, and also engineers in general involved in the space programs, the black projects, to keep them occupied with something that really had no purpose or use for the reptilians or the humans, other than just to keep them busy, their nose stuck into something and out of harm's way, so to speak.
yeah, from revolutionizing the Earth, helping the Earth per se, because Werner von Braun was very intelligent, so he could have used his abilities to create zero point technology and clean up the planet, but he was kept busy with thinking of ideas to build space stations and get people in space. So I actually looked up those plans of his, and they're legit. He was working on a project to build a space station, and from there to launch ships from the space station to go to Mars.
Right.
So he was actually working on that, but he supposedly never finished. Although he did finish, and those platforms were launched. It was more than one space station. It was those 4 ICC Mars orbital space stations. They used his schematic plans to actually improve upon and build those 4 platforms that are out there that spy on others, and there's armament. Some of these things have armament on it for space defense. So his brilliance was used against him, and they were running around in loops. They did the same thing for Nikola Tesla. They stole all his work. We could have had Wi-Fi in the 1950s and free energy.
Safer Wi-Fi, probably.
Actually, yeah, safer Wi-Fi, but that was his work. So they stole it and they put it into these projects, and what they call make work projects. They just harangue you. They make you think it's important to work on these scientific discoveries when it's really not. So they sidetrack you, so you don't actually help humanity much.
Right.
So that's what they did to Nikola Tesla, Werner von Braun. I admire Werner von Braun, and I'm thankful he contacted my higher self to facilitate the communication, to allow it to come through. Because I had no idea. I really had no idea that he had been the one that they used his schematics to build these things in space, those orbital space platforms.
Okay. Your higher self described a hard line for the dark alien agenda, where the divine realm will not allow the ultimate displacement of the inhabitants of Earth and Mars. Do you have a vision of what that might involve?
Well, from what I remember, they wanted to take the colonists on Mars and stick them into those space platform stations, actually. That's what they wanted to do. Because they want to terraform Mars and take it over for themselves. That's what the space programs want, and the Reptilians, and to take all the colonists off of Mars and stick them onto these space platforms. That was one of the plans. I remember from one of the questions that was answered. So that's one agenda. And they all wanted to make us slaves. So have a lot of soldiers, have a lot of humans as slaves, working to be soldiers, guards, and sentries. So these higher SSP types and ICC types could just run the world, and we'd be their slaves. Those were the two plans. Well, I had 4 fingers up, so 2. Those were the 2 plans that I remember. That was the hard.
Okay, well, I'm gonna restate the question here, because you're not really answering the question. Your higher self described a hard line for the dark alien agenda, where the divine realm will not allow the ultimate displacement of the inhabitants of Earth and Mars. Do you have a vision of what that might involve? So what I'm talking about is how the divine realm will not allow these plans to move forth. So what I'm thinking of is like, well, what does that look like? How does the divine realm create a hard line that the alien agenda cannot cross as it relates to these agendas?
Some kind of a solar shift event.
Oh, okay.
That's what I think the hard line would be.
All right.
A reset, an energetic reset.
So those dark, lower vibratory energies cannot really exist in the environment.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
the solar environment, so to speak.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I think that would be from the divine realm. That's what I would expect to come. Some kind of a solar shift event where things are reset and you find yourself on a clean planet where there is no more weapons. Somehow, something is reset energetically, and you can't set off nuclear weapons, or you can't pollute the planet anymore. You can't bicker with each other. Something like that, an energetic
Right.
solar event that's something that everybody will see.
Yeah.
Undeniably, some kind of a sign, solar shift sign event.
Okay.
Undeniably, from space, coming from space to Earth.
Okay. All right. Do you think the alleged home star system for these alien controllers may also be disinformation?
Well, what is the... Okay, let me ask you this. What is the home star system?
Oh, I've heard all kinds of things, and I've heard some things that aren't even that I've not seen anywhere else. I've been told things that I have not been able to find on the internet or in books or anything like that. But the fact that I was told that really got me thinking that I already know that aliens have a tendency not to be honest. Even the more benign ones won't be honest about where they're from. They'll say something else, or they'll let the human questioner lead themselves to an answer that's then no longer disputed. So, you'll like the Nordics or whatever. Oh, you're from Pleiades, and they go, oh yeah, okay, we're from Pleiades. And then another scenario that you see is them saying that they're from some star system, but in actuality they're a subterranean race. They're an Earth race that's portraying themselves as something. I've heard that storyline too, that narrative. So I just, with your exposure to all these things, I thought, well, that would be a good question, because there's so much disinformation. It seems that their stock and trade is saying a lot of things that aren't true. And I thought that could also be one of them.
If they have a specific reason, I'm sure they would lie. If they don't want you pinpointing their galaxy, they'll say something like, oh yeah, I'm from Arcturus.
Yeah.
Well, Arcturus is huge. Like, where are you?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Betelgeuse, like, where exactly are you from? If somebody, okay, let's play an example here. Okay, I tell you, I'm from Kanatra. It's in the unknown universe. You're gonna say, what? Where? Because that's not on our star charts. My soul originally came from a planet called Kanatra, a fire planet outside this universe. I can't grab an earthling map, a space map, and tell you where that is. That's not even in this universe. But I'm not lying to you, because I know where my soul came from. So sometimes it's about this thing not even being on our star charts. It's like not even in this universe.
Right.
So they could be telling the truth about that.
Right.
But they can also be lying depending on their whatever the agenda is. Catch 22 or catch 21. Whatever the agenda. They all have their agendas. Just, they're not perfect. They have their agendas. So either it could truly be like, okay, I'm from Kanatra. That does not exist on your current star charts. It just doesn't exist on our star charts.
So even if they told you the truth or a lie, it's almost immaterial, because what's a human going to do with that anyway? Even a sophisticated one that is privy to, star charts that we don't even have any idea exist, which is certainly plausible given these secret space programs that are out there.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so we have two more questions. Can you elaborate on the concept of human fault being minor, but the consequences being major?
So when you come here to Earth, you're basically blank slated. You're veiled. So you can't really know your faults, what you did beforehand. You're also mind slated again once you've been in the programs, right? So everything is erased. So you can't really be faulted for what you did, supposedly, because it really wasn't in this lifetime, yet it was kind of parallel running to your timeline. You can't be faulted for that. You can't be faulted for what you don't remember. And you can't really prove it either anyway, because we're all being asked, these SSP experiencers, prove it. Where's your proof? I don't have any. It's just based on my memory recall of what happened or my abductions. So I can't be faulted for what I can't prove. It's
Right.
like, it's basically hearsay. So there's this catch-22. The blank slating protects you and the veiling protects you. You can't be faulted for something you really didn't do because it's a secret. So you can't be faulted for that. The other part, can you rephrase that
It
again?
says, okay, can you elaborate on the concept of the human fault being minor, but the consequences being major?
That the human fault is minor because you can't be judged for what you secretly didn't do, even though you did it. It's secret, so you can't be judged for it, but the consequences are physically my health is ruined. It's in tatters. It's ruined because of the abductions and the programs, and I can't keep on blaming them and saying this is why, because I still have to live here, but those are the consequences for me personally. Sometimes I have shaking seizures, uncontrollable seizures, where I'm like a blabbering idiot. That's because stuff has been done to me. I've been tampered with and tinkered with. So that's the consequences. My health is ruined. That's my consequences. I can't fit it into normal society anymore.
Okay.
And I can't turn back the clock and say I don't know any of this. So for me, the minor faults of a human, I can't keep quiet and not say anything when I know what's going on. Because I don't want for stuff like this, for others to happen. For them to be continually abducted or taken and thinking it's okay. You have my permission to do it, because they don't have our permission to do it. So I don't want to take that fault onto myself. That's why I'm saying, like, don't give your free will away to anybody. It's yours as a human.
Right.
Keep it.
Okay, the last question is kind of long because it's a quote that came right around 1 hour, 30 minutes into part one. And I really encourage people, if they don't have time to watch the whole interview channeling session with Karl, they go to that section, because this is where I think the narrative from your higher self really gets to the point. And so I'll go ahead and read it. Through Karl's channeling, your higher self stated, quote, "The loftiest notions and projects employing human assistance are all a subterfuge and a misdirection to increase the acceptance and complacency and the encouragement to contribute and to cooperate and to fulfill your role. And most are enlisted with minimal effort simply by giving them the possibility to participate in something seemingly so marvelous, and then it can spiral downward from there. And so this was intended to be a warning to others to think about what has happened, and to think about and think it would be exciting to meet an extraterrestrial or to participate in the secret space program themselves. This is a trap for them that has been set by others who have come forward with testimony about their involvement and their actions. There, for the most part, are people who are continuing to be used as pawns by the extraterrestrials without an awareness that this is so. They still believe in their extraterrestrial friends." Unquote. So now that you've had time, Ileana, to digest these words, what can you add?
Don't fall for the trap. Don't fall for the temptation. Don't go into these make work projects. It all sounds sexy and wonderful, but it's really not. It's painful, it's dangerous, and there's so much out there that we should be aware of, yet we're not aware of. It's being kept secret from us, quote unquote. Um, and what my higher self says about their people being out there who are not aware that they're being used, that their ET friends are using them, that's true. And there's ones that are also aware of it, that they're being used by the programs and still going along with it to promote it. So there's two kinds out there. I'm not going to name names, that's not nice. But just be careful what the agenda is. Again, use discernment to not fall for these traps. And if these programs are offering something fantastical to you, something amazing, think twice before you accept it, because it is temptation. And it could spiral out of control very easily.
Yeah.
And it could cost you in the long run. Your health, your sanity, your life even. It could cost you your life.
Yeah, and that goes back to the other one, the concept of the human fault being minor, but the consequences being major.
It can cost your life. It could cost your family's life. It could cost you your pet. Like, I've been saying that I've had assassins come and visit me, my house. And that's true. I've had assassins come and visit me to try to terminate me. That actually came out in the session. One of those assassins, the Cobra, tried to kill my cat. My cat had third-degree burns that we could not explain at the vet's office. The vet's like, what the heck did you do to your cat? She has burns. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I can't tell my vet, oh yeah, the alien assassin came and tried to kill my cat, because I said stuff on YouTube that I shouldn't have said about the ICC. So,
yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, oops. And yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother interview.
Yeah, it is. But that's the consequences.
Yeah.
Those are the side effects and the consequences. So be careful what you say. Be careful who you go to play with in the sandbox. Because even in this community, in this disclosure ufology community, there are people who are really aware of what they're doing and who they're playing with. The CIA is here in our sandbox. The FBI, the NSA, MK Ultra, Mossad, all of them. They're in this community. They've infiltrated the community. The ETs have infiltrated this community. So we're all playing together. They're all here. The disinformation agents, the agencies, the SSPs, they're all here. They're all listening. They're all playing in this game with us. Right. So don't think just everybody's wonderful and telling you the truth. Use your discernment, use your free will to make your own choices in life. Right. Don't let people give you baloney, phony baloney, or whatever. Just be your true self and try to figure it out, or ask for advice. Go to your friends, talk to somebody before you do something. I even talked to my mother about my alien abductions and SSP abductions, just so my mother knows what's going on with me. If I disappear tomorrow, at least my mother knows where I went to. It won't be a missing case of she'll never be found again, because Mom will know where I went. One of those. So tell somebody what's going on in your life, even if it's spooky and crazy, even if it sounds ridiculous. Just if it's something weird and unhealthy and beyond the norm, tell somebody. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to continue looking at the channeling series. I'm going to probably end up with another 20 questions, and it probably won't be to the end, and then we'll pick up and we'll do another session like this. And I think it's very helpful, for people to come in and kind of analyze the words that were exchanged, between your questions and the channeling that Karl did of your higher self and your higher self's answers to these questions, and we can kind of analyze them and look back on them and give you an opportunity to respond for everybody. It's kind of a nice closure, a way to kind of wrap things up. And I know you're working on it for your own purposes too. which is probably helping you with the answers that you're giving me in this interview. So I want to thank you for doing this, and we'll join again with your permission. We'll do another session, and thank you for everybody for joining us this evening, and we'll be back again. Bye-bye.
Bye.